Socket 7 here. Today I'm going to make a video on the startup of the MI-8, and I've actually got something pretty neat here. Rather than just go through the startup procedures that can start the helicopter that I know myself, I've actually gotten a hold of a U.S. Army manual checklist for flying an MI-17, which is the international version of the MI-8. And it is actually bang on accurate to the DCS MI-8. So I'm going to be going ahead and using this checklist that I've got here in my hands and walking through the startup of an MI-8 helicopter using the checklist that if you were in the U.S. Air Force, you would be using as of September 21st, 2010. Before any of you comment and say, hey, OPSEC, aren't you not supposed to have these checklists? No, the checklist is available for public release. It is not classified in any way, shape, or form and is freely distributed on the internet. So don't mail me about that. I don't want to hear it. All right. So because I'm going to have to be looking down at this checklist quite a bit often, I'm going to be locking my view as I go through here so that you don't get sick with my track IR. So we're going to start from the cockpit area inspection because we can't do an external inspection. And the first thing that we need to check is our emergency crash axe. You know what? I don't see an emergency crash axe anywhere around here. Eagle Dynamics, that's going to be a problem, I think. Well, I guess maybe in DCS 2.0 we'll have to worry about fighting bears or something. We'll need an axe then. Step 2, pilot and flight engineer seats checked. Yep, we've got seats. Instrumentation, checked condition. Well, it looks like all of our instruments are there. So that's good. And now we're going to go to circuit breakers set. So we're going to go ahead and set our circuit breakers, which are up here. I'm going to turn all of these suckers on. These three here are for the weapon systems, which we're not going to be talking about today, so we're just going to leave them off. We're also going to turn off our anti-icing systems because it is a warm day. We're not going to have to worry about icing. Now we're going to check that our stopcocks are closed. That are these two emergency stop engine switches are set back. That's good. We're going to now make sure that all of our switches are off. So we're going to go from left to right. We can see all of our switches here are off. We don't have anything turned on. That shouldn't be. And we're going to stop here. I believe, because we need to make sure that the hydraulic system is on. We need to make sure that the fuel crossfeed is on, and it is. We need to make sure that the fuel bypass is off, and it is. And then we're going to continue on, making sure all of the fuel pump stuff are off. Radios are off. All of this stuff over here is off. And all the way over to the right-hand side, and everything is off. So that's good. Now what we're going to do is we're going to check our battery voltage, make sure that we have battery power and voltage. And you can do this with this switch here. We're going to turn both of them on, and this gives DC power to the battery bus. And you can check this meter here is controlled by this switch here. And if we turn the DC selector switch, this switch here, to the battery bus, we can see we've got 24 volts from the batteries there. We can also check, this is battery 2 and battery 1. We can check the health of them individually, the voltage there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of load on the batteries to make sure that they are in good health. So we're going to turn one of them off, and we're going to turn on a fuel service pump tank there. And what that does is that provides a load. We can see it's still above 24 volts, so that's good. You can see right there the load changes just a little bit. We do the same with battery 1. Make sure that both of the batteries are good while under load. And there's the AC selector switch down here, which we have to set there to 115 volts. And turn our number 1 battery on there. So now our battery bus is set up, or 115 volts. Our AC selector is selected there. Now we're going to do a caution light check and a flashing caution light check. So that's down here. We're going to flip this switch up to check all of our warning lights. And we can see all of our warning lights are coming on. That's the pitot heater control. We can test that later. Icing heater, again, we can check later. All of these lights are coming on. This way we know that we don't have any bad light bulbs. And now we're also going to have to go and check the flashers. And we can see all of the flashing. These are all of the ones that will flash, I guess. We can turn the flasher on there. You can hear it go click, 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 click. So that's good. Our flasher works as well. Now we're going to check our fire protection. This one I'm a little bit unclear on, so I may get it a little bit wrong. It says that our fire circuit protector is on, and then we switch the selector knob. It should be off, and it is. And then we're going to switch to detect, which it's already on right now, and flick the switch, the squib check switch. And my checklist here says no lights. And I don't know if it means these lights here or this light here. But we're going to go here, select test, and go through all of the individual ones. I think you're supposed to have that up there. I think that's test mode, and then that's operation mode. But I'm not sure. If anybody actually has insight on how this works in a real MI-8, please let me know. I would be very interested to hear about it. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we have to check our fuel quantity, which is down here. And we've got our service tank, our right tank, our left tank, and then total. So it looks like we have about 1,000 liters of fuel, it looks like, which is enough. And then it says finally to turn off the battery and the DC selector knob, because that's just to finish the cockpit checklist. And now we're on to before starting the engines. And so let's see here. I'm going to turn that off because they say to. Before starting the engines, we're going to check our overhead hatch is closed. Yep. We're going to check our harnesses are fastened and checked. You're just going to have to trust us on that one. We're going to check our engine control levels. Our collective is going to be all the way down. Our throttle is going to be all the way at minimum. Now is the time to adjust your collective friction, your throttle friction, if you have it. Make sure that the cyclic is in the middle. Make sure that your wheel brakes are set. And there's a number of kilograms of force per centimeter squared. I think that's how much pressure is in the brake system here. I don't know. Not really important. Make sure that your tail rotor pedals are adjusted. And we're going to turn on our batteries. Both of our battery switches. turn our DC selector to the battery bus. I'm going to turn on the 36-volt instrument transformer, which is down here, and make sure that it is on main. And now is the time. If we were going to use external power, we would connect it. I'm not going to use external power though. So what I'm going to do is, it says for a battery start, we set our 115 volt inverter here to manual. And we're going to do our intercom check. So I'm just going to set up our radios now. We're going to turn that to radio, that to AM. Make sure that we're transmitting on the right radio, which is the R863, which is this radio down here. So we have that all set up correctly. Now we have to check the vibration indicator, which is over here. And we press that, and we get some flashing caution lights down here, engine vibrations. So that works. Good. We're also going to check the power turbine intake temperature indicator, which I believe is the EGT sensor here. Because when you do that, the power turbine intake temperature gauge maxes out like that, as it's supposed to, so we know that's operating correctly. We're going to set the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder correctly. That is not included in DCS World. We have no black box in DCS World because we have the track system. And now we're going to enable our fire detection system by setting it to extinguisher. We're now going to turn on our fuel service pump here. Because we're doing a battery startup, we don't turn on the left and right pumps. We're just going to use the service pump, or the service pump there. We're going to check our fuel fire shutoff valves here. Turn those on. In the event of a fire, you want to turn off the fuel shutoff to the right engine, the correct engine, not the right engine. So now we have a fuel pump on, we have fuel getting to the engines. We're going to turn off the fire shutoff valves, check how much gas we have. We already did that. We're going to set our pitot heat to on. It's a warm day out. We probably don't need it, but better to have it. We're going to check our landing and search lights, make sure those are off. I know they're off except for the current bug, which has 3 mysterious lights beaming out of the belly of the MI-8. Eagle Dynamics or Belsimtech, please fix that. Thank you. We're going to do a radio call now. We're going to talk to the tower and tell them that we're ready to set off. So what we're going to do is we're going to set, I'm at Novorossiysk, so that's 123. And we're going to talk to the tower and request a startup.
Месхака, 100-й, запуск.
100. Месхака, запуск разрешаю.
Okay, so we're cleared for startup. We're going to make sure that our standby generator is turned off. You can't start the APU when it's on. And we're going to go here and start a stopwatch, it says, because you're supposed to time the startup of the APU. I'm going to just start it because we know that the APU starts up correctly every time in DCS World in situations like this. So we push the start button, the auto control light turns on, we watch the EGT rise here, and we make sure that it stays under 880 Celsius. We make sure that the oil pressure light comes on. We make sure that our battery external power voltage does not drop below 18 volts for more than a second. And within 20 seconds, this normal RPM light should be on. And the auto control light here should be off after 30 seconds. Whew. Now we let the APU stabilize for 1 minute. And we set our AC 115 volt AC inverter to manual because we're on battery power. And if we had AC external power, we would set it to auto right now. And you should abort the APU startup if any of the following conditions occur. EGT does not rise within 9 seconds. Battery voltage drops below 18 volts. EGT rises above 880 Celsius. The max speed light comes on. The auto control light continues to illuminate after 30 seconds, or the fire warning light comes on. For successive APU starts, there is 3 starts with a 3-minute cooldown period in between. After the 3rd start, wait 15 minutes before trying again, and only 10 starts with battery observing above limits, whatever that means. Okay, now we do an APU idle check, and it's 720 degrees, less than that. Yep, all the lights are normal. Okay, our APU is successfully started. Whew. They have a lot of checklists and a lot of things here that you have to do in the real world. You have to make sure. I guess that's so that everything is the same every single time, because you don't want something going wrong when you're 1,000 feet in the air. So now we're on to starting the engines. I'm going to start with the first engine. We're going to turn on our anti-collision lights. I'm going to turn on our blade tip lights as well because I like them. I'm going to make sure that our EGT on the APU is fine, and our APU air pressure, which is right next to the EGT sensor there, is within limits. And then what we're going to do is we're going to set our start selector switch to the left or right engine, depending on the wind. There is no wind today, so we're going to set that there. And then we have a caution. If the power turbine intake temperature rises above limits during start, initiate the shutdown using the stop cock. Do not press the stop button. So now we set the start crank switch to start. We release the rotor brake here. We yell out the window that the area is clear. We make sure the area is clear around us. We start a stopwatch, and we push the start button here and pull the stop cock forward. Then what we're going to do is we're going to watch the turbine temperature here. Make sure that within 3 seconds this rises. The rotor will start spinning soon. Make sure that the power turbine intake temperature does not rise above 780 Celsius. We have to also make sure that the oil pressure is rising in the engine, which is over here. You can see it is. Make sure that we are getting pressure in the gearbox. Make sure the start line air pressure is within limits. Make sure that the hydraulic system pressure is okay, and it is coming up. Yes, it is. We have hydraulic pressure. And finally, that the starter is off after we reach 60%. Well, we're well above 60%. And the starter is off. The APU bleed cycle has not exceeded 45 seconds. The auto control light is off. And we're at idle speed for the engine. And our main rotor RPM is between 40 and 55%. Now, we do the same process for the second engine. We set the switch to the right here. We have to wait a minute between starting each engines for the APU to cool down. It's not really modeled in DCS, I don't think. But Now we're going to wait for the second one to come up to temperature. We're going to watch it go. Yep, that's coming up. Go ahead, watch here. Make sure nothing catches on fire. Whatever. You know it's all going to work okay because it's a game. Okay, so now our engines are both started up. And we're going to let our APU stabilize for a minute now before engaging the reserve standby generator as required. It says the reserve standby generator over here would be great if we had to worry about battery discharge. Right now it's actually bugged. I can show you what happens. You immediately get a load of 100 amps and the APU just burns out and malfunctions. So that doesn't work. So we're going to ignore that for now. We're going to turn on our other fuel pumps. Going to check that our turbine RPMs and temperatures are within their idle limits, and they are. Make sure our engine oil pressures and gearbox temperature and pressures are correct. They all are. Goes over all of the reasons to shut down the engines if something goes wrong. And then our start engine checklist is completed. We now have to do the after start engine checklist. Going to check the engine and main gearbox. We've done that. Flight controls. Flight controls appear to be working. Let's see here. Yeah. They appear to be working. I'm going to check the hydraulic system. Make sure the hydraulic system works by turning off the main hydraulics and then seeing that the auxiliary hydraulic system cuts in properly, and it does. And I'm going to turn the main hydraulic system back on. And press the button there. Make sure the main system takes back over. It does. And we're good to go. So that's good. Now what we're going to do is we're going to power up our throttle to full right. We're going to make sure that within about 3 seconds everything comes up to full speed. Make sure that our power turbine intake temperature does not exceed limits. There's now a section on the engine governor, which is down here, which I'm going to be honest, I do not understand. But basically it involves, they do work. You can check here, and if you flick this switch here, you get an overspeed light comes on. And you do get the overspeed lights. I just don't know how to operate this, even with the instructions they have here, because I don't understand how it works. So it's there, it works. I don't know how to work it, so I'm going to be skipping it. Sorry. If you would like to talk to me, send me an email, and school me on how to operate this stuff. Please do. I would love to know, but I don't know it, so oh well. So after we check the engine governors, we're going to turn on our generators, which provide us with AC power. And we're going to turn on our rectifiers here. Make sure that our equipment test switch is off. Our reserve generator is off. Make sure our external power is off. We had external power turned on, we would talk to ground control right now and tell them to disconnect it. And then we're going to go down and set both of our inverters to auto. And we're going to turn off the APU. And remove the chocks in the helicopter. And the after start checklist is complete. Before our taxiing, we're going to do a turbine test, make sure that our power turbine temperature gauge is working again. We're going to do the hot test this time. And it appears to be working. Again, it says to check the flight data recorder. We're going to check our left gyro, the gyro cutout, turn on our audio warning system, our pitch warning system, check our pitot heater, check the icing detection heater, make sure that our fire detection system is checked, make sure all of our fuel pumps are on, they are. Turn on our ADF radios and tune them as necessary. I'm going to go over this panel here, turn on the Doppler system, the JDRO comm radio, the gyromagnetic compass system. And the right gyro attitude indicator. And then what we have to do is we have to go down here. We have to make sure that our tail rotor pitch limiting system is working correctly. The light is off. Press it and hold, it turns on. And then we make sure that we turn it off. We can move it manually to the left, move it manually to the right. When we let it take over, it adjusts itself. So that's working. Turned on our pitot heaters, and we checked our autopilots. Turned off the ones we don't want. That turn our dealies here, they respond correctly, so we know that they're working. Set them to center. Check the autopilot, make sure that we can shut them all off. Everything syncs. So that is the autopilot check, make sure that that works. There's a bunch of checking on the switches that just aren't included here. So now we're going to make sure that our radar altimeter is turned on. Our window is closed. Our G meter is reset. What else do we have here? Fuel pumps is on. Chocks removed. Our brakes are checked. We have brakes. Release them. All pedals there. Okay. So turn our autopilot on here. And we're ready to go. Make sure that our main rotor RPM is within 95 plus or minus 2. We're good to go. So we can talk to Novorossiysk And let's request a hover check.
Сотый. На старте карту выполнил контроль.
1-0-0. Мы с Хака. Разрешаю контрольное висение.
So there you have it. The startup checklist for an MI-8 helicopter, mostly as according to the U.S. Air Force. So if you ever wondered if DCS is accurate enough for you to be able to steal a helicopter from an airport somewhere, yeah, I'd say it probably is. I would also say that you probably shouldn't, because you'd probably get shot, and I don't want to be responsible for that.
Запрещаю.